Good afternoon, Jana.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you all.
Yeah, hi.
We still have people joining, so maybe we'll give it a couple more minutes.
Bon bisous.
Yeah, hello.
Hello, Omar.
Yeah, how are
Hello,
you?
Andrew, Emma. Good afternoon.
Afternoon,
Hello.
afternoon.
Hey, Michelle.
Michelle. Haha.
Jana,
Hello.
good to see you.
Good to see you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. You're welcome.
Hello.
Okay, it's slowing down a little bit with entries now, so maybe 𝐂𝐟𝐴, do you want to get us started?
Voilà. Alors, bonjour à toutes et à tous. Alors, avant de commencer, quelques rappels pour garantir le bon déroulement de ce webinaire. Rappelez-vous, il y a une traduction simultanée qui est disponible et sera assurée par notre très cher collègue Angèle. Donc, vous pouvez sélectionner la langue de votre choix en cliquant sur l'icône en bas de votre écran pour choisir la langue de votre choix, anglais ou français. Aussi, merci de garder vos micros coupés pendant toutes les présentations pour éviter toute interférence sonore pour garantir le bon déroulement, le bon flux pour ce webinaire. Aussi, si vous avez des questions qui vous brûlent à chaud, n'hésitez pas à utiliser le chat pour y poser les questions. Nous allons consacrer une session entièrement dédiée aux questions et réponses, donc nous allons revenir à vos questions que vous allez poser. Tout d'abord, bienvenue à chacun de vous et merci de prendre part à cette session consacrée au renforcement de capacités en termes de réponse aux échouages des cétacés. Je suis Joa Didier Sosopé du secrétariat du CCID et j'ai l'honneur d'être votre modérateur pour ce webinaire. Alors, nos panélistes pour cette session, nous avons comme premier panéliste Madame Emma New Webb, qui est coordonnatrice des échouages à la Commission balnéaire internationale. Emma dispose plus de 20 ans d'expérience dans le sauvetage et la gestion des échouages de mammifères marins. Elle a précédemment travaillé avec British Divers Marine Life Rescue et collabore toujours étroitement avec le Scottish Marine Animal Stranding Scheme. Elle est également cofondatrice de l'Orney Marine Mammal Research Initiative. Nous sommes ravis de l'accueillir aujourd'hui pour qu'elle partage avec nous son expertise sur les réponses efficaces aux échouages. Notre second panéliste est Dr. Andrew Brownlow, président du groupe consultatif des experts sur les échouages. Andrew est vétérinaire, titulaire d'un doctorat en épidémiologie de l'université d'Edinburgh et occupe actuellement un poste de maître de conférence à l'université de Glasgow. Andrew est très expérimenté dans l'amélioration de la collecte et la coordination des données sur les échouages et notamment a mené une évaluation sur l'initiative des échouages de la Commission baleinière internationale. Il a également été boursier du prestigieux prix Winston Churchill Memorial Trust pour ses travaux sur l'optimisation des réseaux de surveillance des échouages marins. Nous sommes très ravis de l'accueillir aujourd'hui pour partager son expertise avec nous. Alors, au programme, nous avons quelques points à l'ordre du jour. Nous commencerons par une brève introduction où nous allons vous présenter le contexte général avec les objectifs de cette session. Ensuite, nous verrons comment comment répondre efficacement aux échouages d'animaux, qu'ils soient morts ou vivants. En quatrième point, nous avons une session interactive mentimeter prévue, un moment de partage où nous allons recueillir vos opinions, vos expériences et vos suggestions. En cinquième point, nous aurons un temps d'échange pour pouvoir répondre à vos questions et approfondir certains points que vous aurez à soulever. Enfin, nous aurons une synthèse des points clés abordés, puis une conclusion. Merci à chacun d'entre vous d'être avec nous aujourd'hui. Emma, je vous laisse la parole.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me clearly. If you can't at any time, please do jump in and I will turn my camera off if necessary. My internet connection can sometimes be a little bit slow. Thank you very much for firstly inviting us both to present this afternoon. We're delighted to be able to attend and talk about building capacity in the region with both dead and live strandings. What I wanted to do just to start off before I hand the floor over to Andrew is just to give a little bit of an overview about the work that we do as the Strandings Initiative at the International Whaling Commission. So if I could have the next slide, please. Thank you. The Strandings Initiative was launched in 2017. We have a Strandings expert panel, which carries out most of the day-to-day work of the initiative. And around the globe, we have just over 35 multidisciplinary experts now situated all over the place, working in a variety of fields responding to stranding. So we have veterinarians, we have pathologists, we have policymakers, educators, a whole range of experts in different time zones who are working to understand strandings and help drive global practice and things like that. Why does this matter? Well, we did some work with CCAHD last year and did a survey where strandings response training came up as a top capacity building priority for the region. So we've been invited here today as a first step to start that conversation. How the Strandings Initiative supports you? Well, we're able to offer real-time expert advice. We're able to offer capacity building. We have a lot of standardized protocols and data collection tools that we can make available for you, and we can work with you to develop more. We're able to increase networking and collaborations between laboratories, research facilities, and we're able to operate in multiple languages as well. And I think the recent events in both Cameroon and Angola of strandings have really highlighted the urgent need for accessible stranding resources in the region. So hopefully we'll be able to support you going forward and really help bring together a really sustainable long-term strandings network. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. So these were the three main things that we found when we did our Mentimeter last year. It was training in how to respond to live stranded animals, training in how to take basic data from dead strandings, and necropsy training were the three key things that came out. What we'd like to concentrate on today very much is those two top ones. The training on how to respond to live stranded animals, which I will be covering. But first of all, how to take the basic data from dead strandings. And I'd like to hand over to Andrew to take you through this part. Over to you, Andrew.
Thank you. Thank you, Emma. Hello, everybody. It's a great honor to be invited back to talk to you. I am a veterinarian by training. I as I was introduced, I have a PhD in epidemiology, but I have experience of running the stranding scheme in Scotland, which I've done for the last 15 years. So I'm going to share with you some of the basic principles that we have developed for how to deal with dead stranded animals. In many ways, the dead animals are easier than the live ones because you don't have welfare issues, but they're also quite challenging because they often require some coordinated work, which is complicated. So the most important thing, if you remember nothing else from today, is the first one. If you're involved with a dead stranding response, the priority is to keep yourself and your volunteers and your staff safe. That means that you need to make sure that the work that you are doing does not put them or members of the public at risk. And that also obviously applies to live animal work, often more so. Once you've ensured that that's possible, the next thing is to think about what it is that you want to find out. Are you trying to take data and samples from these animals so you can find out why they stranded, which is often the case, but can be difficult? Or are you taking samples from them so that you can understand more about the species, or to help build an archive of data and samples that can be used for future studies? Because you can do all of these. You can collect basic information, you can collect samples, and if you are able to keep this data and samples well archived, collated and kept in a freezer, well labeled, numbered, etc., then you will have a really powerful resource going forward to help understand what's happening along your shores. Next slide, please. So there are a few things that are obviously worth doing when you have a stranding event. This image here is from a windswept beach in northern Scotland. This is the sort of setup that we sometimes use, where we have something to keep people sheltered from the wind and the rain. We have less of a problem with sun than I suspect you do. But before we even get to that stage, before we even get to the beach, just be aware of the frameworks under which you're operating. So coordinate with all the local police, wildlife services, the veterinarians. Even if they are small dog and cat veterinarians or livestock veterinarians, they will have some experience that will be able to help you. And obviously with whoever is helping with dispose of the bodies once you have finished sampling them. Make sure that your legal systems are in place, that you have the permits from the necessary government authorities, and that you are allowed to hold and transport samples. And as I said, make sure that you have sufficient protective equipment, which can mean many things, but at its most minimum should be gloves and eye protection. Ideally, wherever possible, make sure that you have first aid kits and a first aid trainer on site in case somebody gets injured. But these are useful things that you need to do before you even get to the beach. Next slide, please. So there is an awful lot that you can do that is of great use and benefit before you even pick up a knife. And that is to collect information about the animal or the animals on the beach. So everybody has a supercomputer in their pocket, shaped like a mobile phone, and that will allow you to take high definition photographs and videos, and will give you a location coordinate, GPS coordinates of where the animal is. We call it the level A data. It's called the what, where, and when. This is the most basic information, but it is often the most important. In addition to the what, where, when data, try and collect as much as you can about just what you're looking at. If you have a single stranding, photograph the animal in great detail. You can always take more photos. There is no problem with taking more photos. You can always delete them. Make a note of any unusual weather conditions or tide conditions that might have affected them. Did the animals, for example, strand on a high tide or a low tide after a storm or after an unusual period of weather? And where possible, try and collect as much information about the number of animals that you have if you have a mass stranding event. So did they all come onto the same beach at the same time? How many are they? Were they all alive or dead at the point to which they came onto the beach? Next slide, please. There is obviously a limit of what you can tell from a carcass dependent on how decomposed it is. If you have an animal that is freshly dead, so it looks essentially like it's just died, you can pretty much take whatever samples you wish. As the animal becomes more decomposed, the value of the information you can get out of it decreases. But even something that looks disgusting and white and you can hardly tell what species it is, you can still get some skeletons, some genetic material, and some useful information about the length or the approximate length of the animal, even in very decomposed cases. Next slide, please. As I say, there's an awful lot that you can collect, but you have a recording form, which we will circulate alongside this presentation, which reminds you what are the most essential things that you want to take. And effectively, it is measurements of the body length. It's a straight line length measurement. Some girth measurements, which can help you understand how the body condition of the animal, whether or not it was skinny or fat, because that is useful information. And you can take measurements about the dorsal fin and the flipper and the fluke, which are useful for other morphometrics. Where possible, try and collect photographs of the underside of the animal, the belly around the genital slit, because that will allow you to determine the sex. If you can take photographs of the dorsal area around the dorsal fin, that will give you information on the body condition. And if you suspect the animal might have been involved in some form of human interaction, so bycatch, becoming entangled in fishing nets or fishing rope, then look very carefully around the pectoral fins and the tail fluke and the dorsal fin, basically anything which sticks out and might have become entangled. And record all of this on the data sheets and obviously take photographs of this. And it should say that if you are taking photographs of multiple animals, make sure that you identify in the shot of the photo which animal you're dealing with. That can be done quite simply by just writing a number on a piece of paper and making sure that piece of paper is in the same shot as the other photos. Next slide, please. So to go in a little bit more detail about the photographs, then ideally, essentially take detailed images across the whole body. I don't need to read out the standard views there, but I'll just emphasize again that try and put in a scale, ideally something like a ruler and an ID tag. If you don't have a ruler with you, put something in the photograph that you know the size of, like a coin or a soda can, or something which you can go back to, and it allows you to work out how big the feature is that you're photographing. And as I say, anything that looks unusual to you, just photograph it. You can take as many photos as you like, and you can send them for people to have a look at, but you obviously can't go back and take them later, so take them whilst you can. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm not going to go into this in great detail because it's very well described on the forms, but I'm just going to say that different tissues sometimes require slightly different storage. Most of them can be frozen at -20 degrees, so in a standard chest freezer. And you can freeze them very successfully for many years or decades. We have samples in our freezers that go back to the early 1990s, which are still used for analysis today. It is worth saying that if you're looking for contaminants, if you think at some point you might be interested to understand if there are persistent organic pollutants, so industrial chemicals which can build up in the tissue of these animals, then wrap the sample in food grade aluminium foil, just the standard silver foil that you can buy from most shops, food shops, because that can be used to keep the sample safe. But most of them, for example, can be frozen. So it's relatively easy to collect a range of tissue samples, skin, blubber, muscle, that will give you a huge range of potential analysis down the line. And just to make the point again, if you put these samples in a bag or a container, be sure to label them with, at the very least, the species and the date and what the sample is, particularly if you wrap them in aluminium foil, in food grade foil, because you can't tell whether or not you have a piece of muscle or blubber when it is wrapped in foil. Okay, next slide, please. There are a lot of different protocols for how to collect tissue, and if you come to the point where you think you might be about to start collecting these samples in earnest, then we can provide the guidelines. But at a basic level, it says at the top here, good quality samples enable good quality science to be done. So there is a best practice for how you take samples, how many you take samples, and where you take them from. And some of these points are on this slide, and there are more of them that are put in the protocols. But essentially they come down to 3 points. Sample quickly so that they don't become decomposed. Label them accurately so you know what it is that you have in the future, and store them as cold as you can, as quickly as you can, so that it stops them becoming decomposed once you've taken them. Next slide, please. So there is a lot more information available, and we can provide this through future potential training, webinar training for very specific questions. And there is some excellent literature that has been produced already in both English and French that covers the sampling and the forms. We also have a lot of support through the IWC and the Global Stranding Network in terms of material that you can get access to and download. And as Emma said, the advantage of the IWC Strandings expert panel is that you can get access to experts from all over the world via your phone, via WhatsApp, and via our support systems. So if you end up being on a beach with some animals that you want to be able to investigate, then get in touch with us and we will link you up with the people who are best able to provide you support in real time over the phone to let you know what you need. And next slide, please. And that's really it. So that was a bit of a gallop through the information. I have one request for you, if that is possible. it would be really helpful alongside the Mentimeter to know where everybody is from and what sort of experience you have had with dead animal stranding response. So if you could, in the chat, just, if you feel happy to do so, just introduce yourself, explain which part of the country you are working in, and a very brief summary of what you have done before. That would be very useful to us. Don't worry about if you don't want to put it into the chat. There will be an opportunity to fill this out in the Mentimeter at the end. I'm now going to pass over to Emma, who is going to tell you about the much more difficult elements of how you deal with a live stranding response. So thank you very much indeed, and put questions in if you want me to try and answer them. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you, Andrew. I'm now going to concentrate on responding to a live stranding, and again, this is going to be quite a quick tour through the best practice and the guidelines for response. I'm concentrating more on first responders, so those first people to arrive at the scene, and the process that you go through when you get there. I think the first thing to highlight is that there are a lot of similarities with responding to a live animal that are very similar to dead animal response, but there are some key differences, and the main ones are that it's much more time critical. You're dealing with an animal that is probably very stressed. It is possibly deteriorating quite quickly when it's on the beach, and it's animal welfare and ultimately the survival of that animal that you are dealing with. Live strandings are very high pressure. There's a lot of emotion involved. There's often a lot of media attention. So they can be very difficult, high pressure situations to respond to, and it is important to try and stay calm and composed the whole way through. It's not always easy, but it does help the situation. Dealing with live animals is much higher risk to yourself and to the public as well. You're dealing with an animal that could be moving. It could be moving quite aggressively and suddenly. They're unpredictable. They're obviously strong, and there's much more risk of injury to any responders as well. You have a lot more complex decision making. You have to decide, or not you personally, but the team as a whole and the experts have to decide from the information available whether you are going to refloat that animal, whether there is a rehabilitation option, and depending on where you are, that might not be an option at all. Certainly where we are in the UK, we don't do rehabilitation at all. You have the option of euthanasia, or whether you're just going to monitor the animal and see how the situation changes. The key thing, though, is that your safety, first of all, is the most important thing. You are concerned about the animal's welfare, obviously, but it is your safety and the public that are around you that are the #1 priority. And that's something to try and remember the whole way through responding to a live stranding. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so the immediate actions when you first get the call that there is an animal in distress on the beach or in the shallows. The key thing is to gather as much information as you can about the situation. The very first thing is get the contact details of the person who is actually reporting. Just in case you get cut off partway through the call, you want to make sure that you can get back in contact with them. So get their name and get their contact details first of all. You're going to need to know the location, any landmarks, what access is like. If they know what the species is, how big the animal is, how many of them there are, because all of that will start to tell you what resources you need, how many people are you going to need to actually respond. Also, what are the environmental conditions? Is the tide coming in? Is it going out? Is the animal still free swimming in the water, or is it on the beach? And have they got any photos or video? The sooner you can get photos or video, you can start assessing the situation and get ahead of the game, really. You need to make sure as well at the same time is to alert any authorities that need to know, so that you've got permissions, and that might vary depending on where you are based. If you have any veterinary support available, any equipment or transport that you might need, so any resources. Crowd control, depending on where it is. I'm very lucky, where I tend to respond to live strandings is very remote, so we don't tend to have public safety so much as a problem. And also any guidance. If you think you are going to need any help, reach out straight away. It might be that you don't need it, but if you can get any expert help that you think you might need on the phone ready, they're there and able to assist if you need that. You are never alone when you're responding, and that's the key thing to remember with the Strandings expert panel, is there is always somebody at the end of the phone who is ready and able to assist and answer any questions and offer any guidance and advice if you need it. Next slide, please. So one of the key things, first of all, is to establish what species it is that you are dealing with. Particularly with live strandings, it's really going to shape how you respond. Is it an animal that is out of habitat that you wouldn't normally find in that region? What size is it? What's its behavior? And so on. If you can get as much information there as possible, it really helps you to shape your response. I'm not going to go through the list of ID clues to establish what species you're perhaps looking at, but the key takeaway here is that if you don't know, don't worry. There are people out there who will be able to assist and are experienced with a whole variety of different species. So it could be something that has never been seen in your region before and is out of habitat. So there are people there who can assist. Next slide, please. So once you've worked out what it is you're dealing with, it's really important to assess the animal and see what its health status is. So you're going to be looking at what its breathing rate is like, if you're able to, measuring the heart rate, assessing the body condition. Is it emaciated? Is it very thin? Or does it look like it's in good nutritional health? Are there any visible injuries? What sort of age is it? And any behavior. Is it alert? Does it look lethargic? You do need to take environmental factors into account as well. What's access like? It may be that the animal is many kilometers away from access and you have to walk to it, and you can't get a vehicle there. How far away from the sea is it? What is the tide doing? If it's incoming, that's helpful, because that means you can work with the tide. Is it dark? Is it daylight? Is there a storm incoming? All of those types of things are important to help you to decide what process you and response you are going to do. And of course, all of this is very much dependent on what resources you have available. Have you got trained personnel? And if so, how many? What equipment have you got? And it's really useful to try and establish this in peacetime. So when you haven't got an animal that you're dealing with, have these discussions in advance and work out what your resources are, because it will make it much easier when a situation actually occurs to have this information to hand. Next slide, please. So the critical decision points are basically, should an animal be refloated or not? And there are really important considerations. It is a very difficult decision to make. And we in the UK always work with veterinarians to make those decisions and assess the animals. So it's really important to not refloat dependent calves. If you've got a very small calf that is on its own, it's obvious that there are no other animals around, its mother is nowhere to be seen, then that's generally not a situation where you would refloat an animal. Again, if it's obviously got any severe injuries or it looks in very poor body condition, whether there's already been refloat attempts and the animals have come back in, if you've got very poor weather and sea conditions or not enough trained people to be able to respond safely, remember your safety is number one. So sometimes you have to actually do what is best for you and not necessarily for the animal. So the key thing here again is you are not alone in making these decisions. There are people out there who are experienced in assessing live strandings and are happy to assist and help offer guidance. We can help offer guidance in terms of stabilizing an animal on the beach if you are waiting for weather conditions to ease or you're waiting for more people to attend. The thing here is you don't have to get an animal back out into the water straight away. You do have some time to play with here. If an animal is going to survive, it will survive being out of the water for a good while if it is looked after in the appropriate manner, if it is kept upright, if it is kept cool and wet, and you're able to keep its stress levels down. It will survive out of the water for quite some time. So there is no need to rush. In these instances, you can do a full assessment quite safely for that animal. And if the animal doesn't survive that period, it was never going to survive a refloat anyway. I think the important thing here is to remember that we are never going to save every single animal. Cetaceans strand sometimes for a variety of reasons, and that does sometimes mean that they won't survive that stranding, no matter how we intervene, and that's important to remember. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I'm not going to run through all of these because we will make sure that this is available to you. But these are some of the key things to remember when keeping an animal comfortable. If you are able to, if you have the personnel to do this safely, one of the key ones is to make sure you get that animal upright. It will take the pressure off its lungs and it will make the animal much more comfortable, and it will start to alleviate the stress that it is under. It's not always easy to do. You have to be incredibly careful with the pectoral fins when you're moving an animal to make sure that they aren't bent backwards because you can damage them. You need to make sure that you're keeping the temperature regulated, so keeping the skin moist with seawater. The thing that you'll very much need to be aware of is shading an animal from the sun to try and keep it cool, to try and stop it from overheating. And just the key thing is trying to minimize stress, keeping the noise levels down, minimizing the crowd around the animal, and so on. And look for those signs such as the breathing rate increasing, that the animal is perhaps deteriorating or its stress levels are going up. There is lots and lots of resources and advice out there to assist in this, and we're happy at any time to answer any questions and offer advice as well. Next slide, please. Okay, some of the very simple do's and don'ts of what to do and to keep yourselves safe. The key thing is to protect yourself and the team. So do always wear full PPE. There's a lot of diseases that are zoonotic that can pass from cetaceans to humans. So always wear the full PPE. Work calmly. I'm not going to run through again all of these, but these are listed there. It's looking after yourself, looking after the animal, and looking after the general public if they are there. The key things not to do are not stand in the danger zones. So don't stand near the head or the mouth, don't stand near the tail, in case that animal does suddenly flip and it can hit you. In terms of handling, be very, very careful not to pull, push, or grab the fins, the tail, any flippers, anything like that. There's no bones, so that they can be very easily damaged. Don't pull on the beak, the rostrum. Be very careful around the blowhole. Don't lean over it when the animal is breathing out. And of course, be very aware of the blowhole and not pour water down it or cover it or anything like that. So we will be giving you hopefully a copy of this presentation, so you will have all of this information there if you want to refer to it at any time. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, coming towards the end now. One of the key things with responding to a live stranding is monitoring the animals and knowing when it's time to stop, and that the animal is not going to be suitable for refloat. So there are key signs to look out for. It's things like the breathing rate increasing, the animal becomes less responsive, you start to notice body temperature extremes, there's increased bleeding or discharge, etc. It is possible, if euthanasia is an option, that is going to be the most humane thing to do at that point. We very much are aware that euthanasia can be a very difficult subject to discuss, and also very, very difficult depending on the species involved to actually undertake. We do have a lot of guidance as the expert panel on euthanasia of cetaceans, both for small cetaceans and larger whales. So please do reach out on that. It's an ever-evolving discussion, and a lot of information out there on the best practice when it comes to euthanasia. So if that is something that is needing to be done, there is support again out there. I think the final key thing to be very aware of is team welfare, and that is very much looking after yourself. Live strandings are emotionally demanding. Do make sure that you have a debrief after an event. It's a really good way to learn what worked well, what didn't work so well, and perhaps what you would change next time it happens. It's also a good opportunity for the team to talk to each other and just discuss how they felt after the event, and to make sure everyone's got the support that they need if it didn't have the outcome that you were hoping for. I think it's important to acknowledge the limits of what is possible with the resources that you have available, and understand that it's not always possible for strandings to have a positive outcome, and to be aware that a lot of the time there is something very wrong with that animal, and that is why it has come in the first place, so we aren't able to get them back out. But then with the information that Andrew has just given you, to use it as a learning experience and be able to take those basic samples and get information about those animals, so we're starting to understand a lot more about why the strandings are happening. Okay, next slide, please. So this is very, very similar, what I've just talked about. Post-event actions. Once the response has finished, if you've managed to successfully refloat your animal, one of the key things is to carry on monitoring to make sure it doesn't come back in. If the animal has died or is euthanized, then to follow the dead stranding protocols that Andrew has spoken about. And very much for all outcomes, as I mentioned, is do have a debrief. They are one of the most important things that you can do after a stranding, and it really, really helps to prepare yourselves for the next event that sadly, unfortunately, probably will happen at some point. And it's really important to remember that any data you gather through the live stranding response and potentially any dead stranding response afterwards really helps to improve future responses. It's really, really important because you learn so much every single time. Next slide, please. So just to finish off, I wanted to highlight some of the support that the IWC Strandings expert panel can offer during live strandings. We can help with species identification, we can help with assessment as to whether the animal is suitable for refloat. We're able to offer step-by-step guidance on handling, on refloat techniques, whether you want any guidance on when to stop or whether to change your approach. We can offer veterinary guidance, euthanasia, and of course the whole sampling if the animal doesn't survive. But we can also link you in to regional experts. We can offer options on rehabilitation contacts if that is a possibility, but we can also offer networking on laboratory support as well. So there is an awful lot that we are available for. You have a really good network of people already who are working really, really well, and it's really important that you have that local network in place and you work together. But we can be there to help if there's any resources that you are in need of or any additional support that you would like. So please do reach out. We very much are keen to carry on supporting CCAHD and working with you all. We'd love to be able to build a bespoke program to help build and support your regional network. We very much want to make sure that you have the resources to train your own network, so running train the trainer programs and things like that. So we are very much working towards this at the moment and trying to come up with funding for various workshops. And of course there is always ongoing support and mentorship available from our global expert panel as well. That was an incredibly quick tour through live stranding response, and once we get to the question and answer session, I'd be more than happy to answer any specific live stranding questions. But also I will provide my email address. So if anyone has any questions further down the line or thinks of anything, then please do get in touch. We're always happy to assist and offer any support we can. Thank you.
Merci Emma et merci Andrew pour cette brillante présentation. Et nous arrivons au thème de la séquence dédiée à cette présentation. Merci aussi à Angèle qui a facilité la traduction. Nous arrivons à la prochaine étape de notre webinaire où nous allons prendre une pause interactive. Je vais prier ceux qui ont leur téléphone et qui suivent depuis leur ordinateur de bien vouloir sortir leur téléphone pour scanner le code QR qui est sur cette diapositive. Ou bien je vais un instant mettre dans le chat pour ceux qui sont sur leur téléphone. Voilà, je viens de le mettre dans le chat. Cliquez sur le lien mentimenteur.com et ça va vous diriger directement sur la page de Mentimenteur pour pouvoir prendre part à ce sondage. Ou allez sur le second lien, cliquez juste et entrez le code pour pouvoir joindre le Mentimenteur. Je vais rapidement ouvrir le Mentimenteur pour que d'ici 45 secondes, nous puissions démarrer la session de Mentimenteur.
I'll just translate quickly. This is to give our wonderful translator, Angèle, a little bit of a pause. She's worked hard for over 45 minutes. So Joie Didier and I will be facilitating this part in French and English. Joie Didier has provided the links to the Mentimeter in the chat. You can click on the link or you can scan the QR code that he had on screen before. And you will see this Mentimeter and be able to reply.
Alors, j'espère que vous avez mon écran. Nous avons 21 personnes qui sont déjà connectées. Ça monte, ça monte. Alors, depuis quel pays vous nous rejoignez pour cette session? Je vous prie de bien vouloir vous connecter. Nous avons plus de 40 personnes en ligne ce soir, donc je vous prie de bien vouloir vous connecter. Si vous n'avez plus puisque vous n'avez plus le code QR, le lien est dans le chat. Veuillez, s'il vous plaît, vous connecter afin de vous assurer que nous ayons vos feedbacks. La France, les Pays-Bas, le Ghana, l'Inde, waouh, le Kenya, l'Angola, le Royaume-Uni, waouh. Nous avons 10 réponses sur 28 personnes connectées. Voilà, ça grimpe. Le Cameroun, le Brésil, la Guinée. Coucou à nos collègues depuis la Guinée, l'Argentine, wow, l'Italie, Guinée. Encore quelques secondes pour passer à la prochaine, à la question suivante. La Chine, wow. People are joining from China. Wonderful.
It's great to see. We must have several people from Angola following a live stranding of a humpback whale there just a few weeks ago, which was a lovely example of collaboration between the IWC Stranding expert panel and our CCHD members. So they know what it's like and they want to be prepared for the next time, which is great.
Wonderful, wonderful. People from Côte d'Ivoire. Okay, let's run for the next question. Ok, la question suivante. Quels mots décrivent le mieux votre expérience des échouages des animaux marins? What would best describe your experiences of marine mammal strandings? Please give us your feedback. Okay. Vous avez la possibilité de répondre en français comme en anglais. You have the possibility answering maybe in French or English. Nous allons traiter vos réponses plus tard. Encore 2 minutes pour passer à la question suivante. Ok. Émouvant, bien. No experience. Yes. Encore 1 minute. 22 réponses sur 39 connectées. Merci pour vos efforts de réponse. Encore 30 secondes. « 25 répondants sur 39 connectés. Pas mal. OK. Next question. Question suivante. How will you describe your current role? Comment décrivez-vous votre rôle actuel? Êtes-vous agent d'une ONG ou pas? Scientifique, impliqué dans la réponse aux échouages, gestionnaire, responsable de la préparation des réponses aux échouages, voilà. Qu'est-ce qui vous décrit le mieux? Merci de nous mentionner ce qui vous correspond. Je vois que nous avons beaucoup de participants qui sont connectés, qui sont membres des ONG. OK. Ensuite, on a des scientifiques, des gestionnaires. Voilà. Membres des communautés, du public intéressé. Encore 2 minutes pour passer à la question suivante. Merci de nous aider à mieux décrire votre rôle actuel. Ouais. Encore 30 secondes. Bon, nous passons à la question suivante. Nous voyons qu'il y a beaucoup de participants qui travaillent avec des ONG. Impressionnant. Alors, question suivante. Voilà. À quel type d'échouage de mammifères marins avez-vous participé voilà, depuis votre début d'expérience jusqu'à ce jour? Andrew avait posé une question semblable avant la fin de sa présentation. Donc, merci de saisir. Si vous n'avez pas fait dans le chat, vous pouvez utiliser le Mentimeter pour voilà, nous décrire votre expérience. Est-ce à une intervention sur un animal vivant ou un animal déjà mort, ou les deux cas, ou vous n'avez aucune expérience en matière d'intervention euh, de réponse aux échouages? La plupart des répondants ont déjà apporté de réponses pour les deux cas d'échouage. On a encore 2 minutes. 40 personnes sont connectées au Mentimeter. Je pense qu'il y a des gens qui sont connectés mais qui n'arrivent pas vraiment à répondre.
There seem to be 41 people connected to the Mentimeter, but we're not getting more than 24 to 26 responses.
25, 20, yes.
Yeah. So if you're having trouble, please
Let us
let us know. I know that we're also just hitting the hour. It's 6 o'clock now, but my time anyway. But hopefully you can stay on a little bit longer to finish this Mentimeter and have a little bit of question and answer time with Andrew and Emma. We're still giving Angel a little bit of a break from interpretation.
Yes. Oh, 27. Can we reach 30 at least?
I think maybe we should move on, Joie Didier, so that we have some time for questions and answers.
Perfect, yeah. Okay, next question. Question suivante. Quelles sont les 3 principales choses que vous aimeriez recevoir, voilà, d'une formation? What are the 3 main things you would like from further training? Okay. Formation à l'intervention sur des animaux vivants échoués. Deuxième chose, en savoir plus sur le mammifère marin. Ça grimpe.
This question takes a little longer for people to read and evaluate. It may be that some people, like myself, don't want to respond because they want this to reflect more the needs of the people from the region, from CCHD, who are attending.
Encore 30 secondes pour passer à la question suivante.
Another 30 seconds before we go on to the final question. Is it, Joie Didier?
I guess. Final one, yes, final one. OK. Dernière question, je crois. Laquelle des menaces suivantes a un impact sur les mammifères? Nous avons les prises accessoires ou enchevêtrements, les bruits sous-marins, la pollution, manque de proie, collision avec les navires, débris marins et indigestion de plastique, quelque chose d'autre. Which of the following traits do you think impacts marine mammal in your region? Please let us know. Which of the following threats are you facing in your region? Encore 1 minute pour finir. Ça, c'est la dernière question. Last question. Quelle ressource serait utile lorsque vous intervenez en cas d'échouage du matériel pour les évaluer? Ok.
Je vois Didier, tu peux clarifier la question pour Joël?
Joël, un instant. Voilà, la dernière question, elle aborde les ressources qui seraient nécessaires, hein, et utiles pour vous en cas d'intervention face à un cas d'échouage.
Donc, ça peut être des matériels concrets comme des caméras ou ça peut être aussi des ressources comme des guides ou des protocoles illustrés.
Encore 1 minute pour mettre fin à cette session de Mentimeter et merci pour ceux qui ont pris leur temps pour répondre, pour donner leur avis, pour nous partager leur expérience. Nous traitons les réponses de chaque Mentimeter pour chaque session et voilà, pour pouvoir mieux nous situer sur ce qu'il faut offrir pour les prochaines sessions.
I don't know if Angel was already translating into English, but Joie Didier was just saying how very useful it is that you've taken the time to participate in these Mentimeters. We use them to guide our next webinars, but also when we apply for funding, for workshops and capacity building, we take these responses into account that help us to understand what your needs are to better conserve cetaceans in your area. And we try to apply for funding to have workshop and to create resources that will meet your needs.
OK, merci beaucoup. Nous allons passer à la session suivante. Alors, une fois encore, merci à Emma et Andrew pour leur présentation. Nous ouvrons maintenant. Je n'ai pas pu faire le monitoring du chatbot, mais je ne sais pas s'il y a des questions, mais je vais y revenir tout à l'heure. Si vous avez des questions à poser pour mieux comprendre quelque chose que Andrew ou Emma a souligné dans leur présentation, le principe est simple. Veuillez juste lever la main. Nous allons faire le listing et vous donner la parole. Voilà. Si vous avez des questions, levez juste la main et nous allons... Voilà, je vois qu'il y a Geoffroy qui a la main levée.
Maybe, Joie Didier, if I could just address one of the questions that was in the chat, or ask Emma and Andrew to address one of the questions that was in the chat, because it was in French. Our colleague Mabinti in Guinea was asking what kind of support the IWC Stranding Initiative might be able to provide in Guinea in particular. They would like help for their universities to be able to better train their students in stranding response and data collection, and also work with the national agency that's responsible for responding to strandings. They had some training during the big project that we had in Guinea over between 2004 and 2022 and 2024. But they're interested in going more in depth. And your answer may be relevant for other countries as well, Emma and Andrew.
Do you want me to answer that one, Andrew?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you. Certainly we can support, we can offer training. The one way we do like to work is we very much like to have a discussion with you prior to agreeing anything, so that we can understand exactly what it is that you're needing and what you're hoping to get out of it. But I think the key thing to be aware is we don't have any funding, so we would need to secure funding to be able to come and run training and run any support. We can do that, absolutely. The first thing to do is perhaps is to reach out to me at the Commission. I will put my email address in the chat. And then we can get a conversation going and work out what the best way for us to support you is. But we're happy to talk to anybody about support and offering capacity building and working with universities, working with the authorities and so on. So absolutely, have a conversation and let's take it from there. So I'll pop my email address in the chat for you, and if you drop me an email, I'll come back to you. It will probably not be till next week now. I work part-time and I'm not working tomorrow, but I will come back to you and we can set up a meeting and work out the best way to do it. But we have lots and lots of options on what support we can offer. Hope that helps.
OK, merci beaucoup, Emma, pour ta réponse. Prochaine personne sur la liste, Godfrey. J'espère que j'ai bien.
Okay, hello everybody. Thank you, Emma and Andrew, for these very interesting presentations. So I have 3 questions and I will try to make them short. So the first one is about a group of dolphins lost in brackish water, especially in deltas. I had this situation where I had a group of dolphins and I tried to push them away from the brackish water, but they just keep circling and avoiding us in Port-Gentil, and unfortunately 2 of them get caught in a net during the night, even if I recommend to the fishermen to take out the nets, but they didn't do it, so they get caught in the net. So this situation I'm quite lost a bit. After, when a humpback whale arrive on the beach, and it can be refloated, but often you have fishermen or oil companies, we will come and tangle a rope around the tail and pull the whale. So is it something that you recommend or not to pull the whale by the tail? Because I know with sharks, we do not recommend to do it. So I just want to know this too. And the last one is when a whale have a dead stranding inside a city area, which happens often too in Port-Gentil. What do you do with the body? For example, the people used to burn it. I don't know if you recommend that too or not.
Emma, do you want to talk about the live animals, or shall I?
Ouais, prochaine.
I can start, and then if you've got anything else to add. Animals in out of habitat situations where they're still free swimming are really, really difficult to respond to. I've had similar situations with pilot whales that have come into enclosed areas, and we've managed to herd them out, but it is so difficult to do because they will very quickly learn that they can get under the boats, and there's always a risk of panicking them and they strand. So it's going to be a situation that is really variable and is going to depend on the location, and what the threats are. Normally we'd monitor for a while, and hope that they go out by themselves. I have to say, whenever I've tried that, it doesn't happen, and normally we've then tried to intervene. The best thing to do in that situation is to reach out, and we'll have members of the expert panel who will have dealt with very, very similar situations, and will be able to advise on how they dealt with it, and whether there are any particular methods that they used that did work, or also what didn't work. That's just as important to understand as well. They can, as I say, they can be really, really difficult, and I think the best situation for live animals that are out of habitat is to reach out for support, and we can hopefully put you in touch with somebody who's dealt with that. With regard to large whales that are live on the beach, we don't recommend pulling via the tailstock. There is a new best practice guideline that has been recently published, which has some methods of moving them that involves putting strops around the body nearer the pectoral fins and moving them, and that has been used successfully on the humpback whale that live stranded very recently, which was an amazing response. They are available online, and I will link a copy of them into the chat now for you. I've got them on my laptop, so I'll get them into the chat. That really explains very, very well what the best method for trying to move a large whale is and why you shouldn't pull by the tail. But I'm sure Andrew will be able to explain it very well as well. Hope that helps.
Thanks, Emma. Yeah, not much really to add. The aim with trying to move a large whale is to get it so that it is floating even just a little bit, even if it's floating in 50 centimeters of water, 30 centimeters of water. That will help immeasurably it being able to breathe and it to be able to keep the blood supply going to the important tissues that will otherwise be becoming crushed by the process of it by being stranded. So you want to get to that stage as quickly as you can, and it is incredibly difficult. And as Emma said, what was managed in Angola was remarkable. But don't pull them by the tail, and be aware just how heavy they are. some of the footage we saw early on from the Angola rescue had some very thin ropes that were around the tail, which were all that they were doing was just digging into the tissue and damaging the animal. So you need some really heavy duty strops. These things are the size and weigh about the same as a truck. So imagine what you would need to have to pull a heavy laden vehicle, and get the strops accordingly. To answer your last question about disposal in urban areas, really the aim is to dispose of it in any way that you can. We tend not to burn these animals, but we will bury them. We will sometimes tow them out to sea. Ideally, if we have the choice, we bury them because the nutrients go back into the ecosystem, and that is good. Or we tow them out to sea if that's possible. Removing them and burning them on land, or taking them and for burial on land, is the least best option, because the nutrients don't go into the sea, and often in order to have to burn them, you introduce chemicals into the environment. So that's not our preferred option. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup. Nous allons passer à Riff. Riff, you have the floor.
Hi, am I audible?
Go ahead. Yes.
So my name's Tanuj Mark. I work in Reef Watch Marine Conservation in India, and we've been attending to live and dead marine megafauna strandings across the Indian coastline since 2017. So this is a two-part question. One being, are there any other variables that you have collected outside of necropsies that can actually give us a larger picture of what might be the causes of these strandings, right? Because from our data, necropsy data and live animals that we have rescued gives us a baseline of what is happening across the coastline, primarily onshore but not offshore, right? One of the things that we're struggling with as of now is trying to collect offshore data to understand what are these causes, where are the hotspots, is it fishing activities, how big is fishing a problem. So all of these are some of the questions that we're looking for, and have you been able to find any of these answers? Do you want me to also ask you the second part, or wait for the answer here?
Well, I'll try and answer the first part. I mean, what you're asking is a question that is fundamental to Stranding's investigation, and we are all trying to do the same. You know, it is difficult. We have the projects that I am involved with have been running for 30 years, and the long-term data sets are brilliant because they allow you to see a change in species distribution, in the number and seasonality of stranding events. And once you have data of that resolution, you can see when the animals are coming in, what species are coming in, what time of year they're coming in, and what condition they're coming in. That can help point you into the direction of what you're looking at. It will probably not be a surprise to anybody that the most common cause of death that we identify is interaction with fisheries, and that is pretty much universal, I think. So those are things that I would focus on if you can, but it is difficult. But what we can do is there are certain techniques that are potentially useful, both statistical techniques and in terms of aggregating data between different organizations and different networks that can help improve your insights and your intelligence of the body of the water that you're trying to monitor. So drop us an email and we'll continue a conversation about this. I don't think we have a magic bullet or a magic solution, but we can certainly talk about some of the strategies that have worked for us to see if they're helpful to you. Thanks.
That would be fantastic. That's actually, you've answered my second question, which is, can we compare data from the African continent to the Indian context and try and see if certain strategies might work here or certain strategies is something that we can implement in India. Thank you.
If I could just quickly add, I don't know if you're already connected to some of the marine mammal stranding networks in India. Emma and her team just conducted a stranding workshop in India not very long ago, a few months ago, I think. And they have excellent resources. And in fact, the guide that we developed for the CCHD, parts of it were adapted from a similar guide developed by the teams in India. So you've got some great resources and networks there as well. And it would be good to get connected with them if you're not already.
Thank you. We are in touch with them as well.
Perfect.
Merci, merci. I don't know if Tim is still there. I saw he raised.
Oui, je suis là.
Okay, go ahead, Tim.
Oh no, sorry. It was a response on the animals getting stuck in estuaries and mangroves. There's a long time ago, embarrassingly long time ago, I led a strandings response in Madagascar and we had 100 melon-headed whales stuck in a mangrove system. And everything that Emma said is basically what I experienced, which is they're very difficult to get out. And we ended up, of all those animals, maybe 8 survived. And the ones that survived, we actually caught and took back to sea. And so I won't bore everybody with it, but I can put the link in the chat. There's a dedicated page on the IWC website that talks about that stranding, and there's a lot of reporting and a kind of a day-by-day account of what we tried and what worked, what didn't work. So.
Ok, merci beaucoup, Tim, pour votre contribution. La dernière question pour cette session de questions-réponses, Isaac.
Hi. So, good afternoon, everyone, and Isaac from Ghana. So, I want to find out. I think I'll raise this point, this issue in some time past. From the experience we had with our first mass stranding in Ghana in 2021, we had a very good support from the IWC experts. And we went through the processes for collecting the samples and then we preserve them. But then it looks like after that we had very much difficulty getting resources to run the analysis. So we couldn't run the toxicology analysis, the microbial analysis, etc. And the samples were kept in preservation for 5 years, for 4 years, and unfortunately, we didn't get support from the the government to run the analysis after we received the support to go for some samples and run the necropsy. And we didn't get support from the IWC either. So unfortunately, because of unstable electricity and etc. on our part of the world, it got to some point when the samples were going bad, and we had to discard them from our freezers in the lab. So could it be possible that the IWC considers establishing or designating some laboratories? Perhaps they could have a designated lab in West Africa, another in East Africa, etc., where after some samples are taken and there is no funding from our government or our organizations to run the analysis. We could send those samples to the IWC designated labs for the analysis to be run, and then IWC covers the cost of the analysis. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Isaac. I mean, your point is very valid, and this happens. You respond to a stranding, you collect some samples, and they sit in a freezer because the mechanism for getting them analyzed is difficult and there isn't funding. And eventually there is a power cut and the samples turn to soup. This goes back to my question of it helps to understand what it is that you're doing this investigation for, and collect the samples that will help you answer that. And it's also helpful to be aware that you may not have much support beyond what you can collect on the day. So that is why collecting detailed information and detailed photographs that don't require much additional money to be able to support can still be very useful in these investigations. You will understand the age of the animals to a point, the body condition of them. You'll be able to look to see if there's any external lesions and potentially internal pathology. And that can help shape what it is that you choose to then spend money on. One of the things that we are trying to do within the IWC is to build networks of laboratories that you can use. And one of the things I would strongly encourage everybody to do is to reach out to their veterinary support laboratories, people who work on goats and sheep and domestic animals, and often dogs and cats. They will have the facilities to run some most basic sampling processing. So you don't need specialist labs for this. You can use the local regional labs, the veterinary support labs, and the universities. We don't have capacity to run labs anywhere, but we can certainly support any laboratories with the protocols that will help. And one of the things that we can do is to link you up with people who have developed tests for the various sort of specialist things you might want to test for example, contaminants, or looking for presence of viral pathogens. So we can certainly help with that. But unfortunately, as is always the case, it comes down to funding. And all I can advise is that have these conversations with your governments early on. and point out to them that there is a justification and a help for them to support these investigations, and ideally try and do that before the event happens, so that you know whether or not you're going to get support from that sector or not. But I hear what you're saying. It is frustrating, but it is unfortunately that is not an unusual case that we have. Thanks.
Ok, merci beaucoup Andrew pour la réponse à ces questions. Merci aussi à Emma pour ses apports, aussi à Diana. Nous allons mettre fin à cette session de questions-réponses. Mais avant de finir, je voudrais vous demander gentiment de bien vouloir ouvrir vos caméras. C'est de notre tradition ici au CICIAD. Nous essayons de prendre une photo de famille pour pouvoir illustrer ces beaux moments partagés ensemble, riches en expérience et voilà, en partage. Donc, je vais vous demander d'ouvrir vos caméras pour que nous puissions prendre une photo de famille. Alors, s'il vous plaît, ouvrez vos caméras. On attend encore, voilà, quelques-uns. Tim, est-ce qu'on peut avoir ton visage si c'est possible?
Always a man of mystery.
Tu veux quoi? Excusez-moi.
Il veut que tu
Put
allumes
your
la
camera
caméra.
on so we can see
excusez-moi.
you.
Ah, j'étais ailleurs, quoi. Désolé. Comment faire ça? Je sais pas. Euh, je veux bien, mais attends.
Allez, beau gosse.
C'est ça? Je suis allumé?
Non,
Non.
toujours pas.
Non, mais ça marche pas.
Hi Clément.
Ah non, mais c'est là, c'est là. C'est à gauche. Et voilà.
Voilà, parfait. 3, 2, 1. Tchi! Tchi! Alors, parfait. Merci beaucoup. Nous allons, alors, voilà. Un instant, je retrouve la dernière slide que je partage. Un instant. Alors, CCHD. Vous avez mon écran? Non. CCHD. Alors, chers participants, nous arrivons au terme de cette session et je tiens à vous remercier chaleureusement pour votre participation active à cette session et aussi pour votre intérêt tout au long de ce webinaire. Nous étions plus d'une quarantaine connectés, mais vous êtes restés jusqu'à la fin. Un grand merci à nos panélistes Emma et Andrew pour la qualité de leur intervention et pour le partage généreux de leur expérience et expertise sur les cas de réponse aux échouages. Un grand merci à Diana qui a supervisé la coordination de l'organisation de ce webinaire qui a été un succès. Une mention très, très, très spéciale à notre chère traductrice, Angèle, qui a contribué à la réussite de cette session. Angèle, merci beaucoup. Merci, merci. Nous espérons que cette session vous a permis d'acquérir de nouvelles connaissances, de mieux comprendre les protocoles de réponse et d'identifier les bonnes manières, les bonnes pratiques à renforcer dans vos contextes respectifs. L'enregistrement de ce webinaire sera rendu disponible sur nos canaux digitaux d'ici là. Et nous vous enverrons aussi par mail l'enregistrement avec la présentation. N'hésitez pas à rester en contact avec nous et à partager, voilà, et à collaborer avec nous pour poursuivre les efforts collectifs en faveur de la conservation des cétacés et toute la biodiversité marine. N'hésitez pas, je vais mettre dans le chat les liens pour un instant, le lien pour nous suivre sur nos réseaux sociaux. Abonnez-vous à nos pages. Merci encore à toutes et à tous et à très bientôt pour nos prochaines activités. Merci, merci, obrigado, thank you, see you next time. Bye bye.
Thank you, Didier, for the wonderful facilitation.
Welcome.
Merci, merci tout le monde.
Merci, bye bye.
Merci.
Ciao.
Merci à tous, Djibouti. Merci.
Thank you.
Let me stop.
Bye, guys. See you soon.
Thank you so much, Andrew. That was